Hey fellas, man, that coffee tastes good. It's unseasonably cool today. We got the pool open yesterday and the kids are gonna be wanting to go swimming, but it's like 50 degrees. All right, welcome to part 4 of the Monogram 1/72 scale space shuttle with boosters build. And in this exciting episode, we deal with the orbiter for the last time. I get paint on it, I get it decaled, and I had a little bit of trouble with the decals, as I figured I probably would, but it is completed. Oh my gosh, it's like Star Wars. Anyway, I've got it done here, and this video is going to run a little long, so I'll keep my little monologue here at the beginning short, but I wanted to give, I didn't go really in depth. It took me long enough as it was to get it done without having to videotape everything. So I don't go real in depth on how I paint it and everything, but I do give you an idea what my thought process was and a few little tips and tricks here and there that I used on this one. This by far isn't perfect at all. It looks good from 3 feet away, but when you get close, I had to do a lot of patchwork with the decals, which I wasn't real happy with overall, and it was just kind of a but overall I think it turned out really cool, and I think once we get it with the on the boosters and the fuel tank, it's gonna look really cool. So anyway, I'll quit yapping, let's get on with the video. Okay, so now we get to the fun part, the painting stage. Now I have decals for a lot of this. Some of the decals I'm not going to use. I'm going to paint in some of the areas just because I'm really not satisfied with how the decals depict them. And the Columbia is a little bit different than a lot of the other shuttles. For one, there is the black area along the front of the wing. I'm going to paint that. There's no decal for it. The front is all tiled up, so I am going to use the decals in the front. But for this upper part and the 2 wing sections right here, there's tiles right along here. But on the inside, I've got a couple different shades of cream mixed up by mixing white with deck tan. So I'm going to go along and I'm going to mask off the thermal blankets so I don't get any cream on those. And I'm going to go along and paint the cream area. And it doesn't really matter if I overspray into the other areas because they're all going to be painted or covered with the decals. Now the decals do pretty much cover any color. So if I would overspray with black, the decals will cover it. So now one specific area is right here where you see these black lines along this area. Now the decal sheet gives you a section for that, but it doesn't look like that. They've got it in this like metallic-y type color with the black lines. So I'm going to go ahead and spray those black, mask it off, and then respray those white. But I can do that after I do my cream weathering type paint. So I'm going to get on with masking the thermal blankets off, and then I'm going to spray some cream and then do some more masking and just go from there and see if I can try to replicate what we see in this picture. All right, let's take a look at what we got. So what I did is, as you can see, I masked off the thermal blankets to keep them bright white. And then I shot a cream color, a real light cream color, over the areas that aren't going to be either painted or covered by decals, because a lot of this model is actually going to be covered by the decals. Then I masked off some of the lighter cream areas with tape. You can see those are obviously the lighter areas based on the reference pictures. Not completely 100% accurate again, but just to give you the idea. And then I shot a darker cream color, and then I took some smoke color, Tamiya smoke, and went over and hit some areas, and I took basically Post-it notes, and I marked off some areas and sprayed some different squares and just some different things on there. And then I also cut out some little square sections and just shot that with a little bit of smoke. It didn't take much. Now, obviously, this is way too stark for what I want to achieve. Now, in order to give this a bit more realistic weathered look, I'm going to tone it back, and I'm also going to use the salt technique and spray some white over the salt. But before I throw some salt on here, I do want to knock it back just a little bit more, because when I throw the salt on and then I knock it back all the way back to where I want it, the little areas where the salt masks off the underlying cream and smoke color, it's just going to be way too stark. So I'm going to knock it back to just about where I want it, and then I'll put some salt on, and then I'll spray some more white. So that's what I'm going to do next, and I will catch you in just a bit. All right, let's take a look at what we've got going on. Now, I knocked this back a lot with the white, and I used the salt technique. It really didn't show up that much, which was fine. And then I also went and did a marbling layer of white just to break it up and to give it a little bit more patchwork appearance. And I think I've got it pretty close to what I see in the picture. Now, obviously, this part's in the shade, so colors are going to look a little bit different. So, but I think I've got the general idea down. And I'm pretty happy with how that's turning out. Now, the hard part comes where I've got to mask off certain areas and paint certain areas. Now, the black isn't going to be that difficult. They're right here, and I've already started marking those off. But I also have to do this in conjunction with using my decals, which I'm cutting up. So I'm going to be hand cutting some of these decals up. And so I have to try to match up so when I lay the decals down, it all meshes with the paintwork. Okay, so I am going to use this decal. I am also trimming the edge of this right here. Get a little bit more light in here. We don't need that. There we go. I'm going to trim this off on the decal because it's a little too wide. If we take a look at the other one that I haven't trimmed yet, it's just way too wide. So I am going to cut this on the decal. So I've got my photocopy here, and I'm lining it up. And this is where the scribing that I did right along here really does come in handy with lining these decals up properly, because they do fit the kit really well. I also had to cut a section out right here along this decal, because the tiles actually on the decal go all the way up. So I am cutting that up. So this is where the photocopies also come in really handy, where I can line all this up so I can get my paint down where it needs to go. So now I know my black's going to be right along here. I've got it masked off initially, and so I'm going to go ahead and spray the black. I've also, if you saw when you watched the last video, I had sprayed gloss black on top. I think I showed a picture. It didn't actually show me doing it. But I sprayed the gloss black and polished it up so it's real shiny. And I laid down a couple masks that I cut with Cricut for these top windows. And I also cut some a mask that's slightly larger so I can come back in and paint the black surrounding the window. Now, I did make that a little bit too large, so I got to go back and adjust and make that a little bit smaller. So I do have to cut a new mask. But now I'm also probably going to go ahead and mask the window area that you see here, and I'm going to paint that. And which means when I lay down all my tile decals, I am going to have to do some snipping and cutting so the tiles don't cover up all my paintwork on the windows. Now, if you didn't do any window alterations like I did, then the kit actually, or the decals actually offer. Let me grab them. The decals that go around the window, but obviously since I've trimmed my windows and I've made them smaller, these are not going to work. So I'm going to have to go ahead and paint those. So I'm going to go ahead and get all my black areas masked up and painted, and then we'll come back and look at it. And probably after that, I'll paint the leading edges of the wings, the gray color, and deal with those. And then we'll get into some weathering on the surface of the thermal blankets, and then we can probably start applying the decals, which is going to be extremely fun. Not really, but okay, I'll see you then. All right, fellas, I've skipped ahead and went ahead. I spent all day yesterday masking and painting, and like I explained before, it was a little bit challenging. I shouldn't say a little bit. It was a lot challenging trying to mask and paint with decals that I know I'm going to have to cut up, and you know, trying to get the decals and the paintwork to mesh is one of those challenging things if you go the route that I'm going. So anyway, we'll start at the back, and I just sprayed a light coat of NATO black on the rear section here. Now they do have tile decals for this area, but they don't give you enough to cover every little part. So I just sprayed black. I wasn't too concerned with how opaque it was. But I probably, once I put the decals down back here, I'll probably come back and blend them in a little bit with some more NATO black. Went ahead and mask off this section here where the decals weren't, where it had that metallic look to them, and it didn't really match the Columbia. And obviously I masked and painted the black area up here and the leading edges of the wings. I also painted the area around the window glass. Now this is a little bit different than a lot of the shuttles from what I've seen. So they've got like these two little horns up here and some other things. Plus the decals that come with the kit obviously aren't going to fit because I adjusted the windows. I did take a little bit of cream and some smoke colors, and I don't know if it'll show up in my little area that I have to display this because it's so big, on the thermal blankets, just to kind of differentiate some of the tiles. It's pretty subtle, but when you step back and look at it, you can really tell the difference. Now, once I get the decals on, then I can do some weathering with oil paints, and I'll probably do some more with the tiles. I do have a clear coat on it. I just left the primer coat on the bottom because this is going to be covered by tile decals, and they do cover everything, so it wasn't, I didn't have to put a separate color down here because this is all going to be decaled. Now, the way I'm going about this is I'm doing a lot of test fitting, and the most important part, in my opinion, is getting this nose area right, because there are a lot of pieces that come together that I need to fit correctly. And in my experience, once you get these tiles, or these decals down, they are tough, but I don't want to be moving them around a lot. And I think once you get them locked down, then it's going to be hard to move them. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to start with these white tiles up here. And there's one section, if you can see it, right along, mark it. There's a decal that I've got cut out that fits right along here. Now I'm starting with this known section because I know I've got like 3 points where this matches up. It matches up, well, yeah, I've got 3 points where it matches up. Here, 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 and here. 4 points. So this left side here is going to be the basis of how I start this, because I know where it matches up. Now there's a little sliver on the decals I'm going to have to cut off, but that's not that big of a deal. But I'm going to start with this one, then I'm going to get this one on, and then I can come back and put these sections right here on. I am going to cut this part off because it doesn't seem to be matching up with the center section, and I'll go through this, but I just wanted to give you an idea how I'm planning this out with the photocopy, so I know where my issues are going to be, so I can tackle those ahead of time without ruining the decals, because I only got one shot at it. So that's how I'm going to work. So this section, this white tile section, and then cut this little section off here and put the black tile on, get that mated up, do the other side, and then I will be able to put on the 2 pieces right up here and get those aligned, so they should be perfect. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going to go ahead and start getting these areas down, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how I'm putting the front nose section on. So, because it's going to take a lot of time. So I will catch you in a bit. All right, fellas, I had a bit of a couple technical difficulties because Ringo was kicking my, or trying to eat my tripod. So I've got these, the front on, and I've at least got it centered. However, they are not going down as well as I want. Now, there's a few creases, but I'm getting them out a little at a time with a hair dryer. But as you can see here, this is really messed up, this nose area. It just didn't go together very well. So what I'm doing is they supply you with these extra decals, these little things right here. And I'm not going to be using these white decals right here because I've got that area filled in with the thermal blankets. So what I'm doing is I'm going to go ahead and cover these up with the extra decals that they're giving me. And I'm going to use the decals that they provide. Let's see. So I'm just going to start covering this up and laying down these decals. And I'm probably going to be doing a lot of this. Okay. I'm just going to take my Q-tip. It would have been nice if they didn't put the white with the black. So that's how I'm going to solve this issue. Now they do give you, if I can find it here real quick. So what I'm going to end up doing is using these decals to create those three thruster ports on the front. Let's see. Yep, that's what I'm going to use. And then I'll just paint over those with some oil paint. So going to be a bit of a pain, but it is what it is. I knew this was going to be a little more difficult than just throwing decals on, especially with my expertise in decals, which doesn't exist. So I'm going to get to putting these on. I'll get it all hopefully looking as good as possible. And then I'll see right there, I'm missing a spot, so I'm going to fill that in as well. Now I'm going to do a lot of weathering up front based on the picture. So if some of these decals aren't perfect, that's going to be okay because I'm going to weather them anyway with oil paints. So that's where I'm at, fellas. Ringo, stop chewing on my cords. Yeah, I'm trying to put decals on, and this is what I'm dealing with. Move it. Move it. All right, fellas, I thought I'd show you how the bottom decals go on. I've already got these on at the bottom. I put these on first. And now we're going to put on one big one that goes right along here. And I know it's kind of hard to fit in the camera, but I will do my best. So I've got a big bucket or a big dish of warm water. I find that the warm water really makes these decals pop off a lot better than using the regular room temperature or cold water. So here's the decal I'm going to put on. It's a pretty big decal. Some of you guys might be like, oh my gosh, that's such a big decal. It's so hard to put on. These are actually the easiest ones to put on in my opinion. So what I've got for my decal setting solution is X20A and a hair dryer. So these are the things that I'm going to use to get them to settle down. And I've got my brush to brush it on. I'm not going to use Q-tips for this because it's just way too big. So let's start. Get everything lined out here. Now, I'm not a big fan of these decals. They're as far as the quality goes, they're pretty good quality. But I don't like how all the black tiles are all gray. It's okay if they're gray on the bottom because that's the way they're supposed to be. But the decals on the nose, on the upper surface, should be dark. And so I'm going to have to do some things with that. So anyway, let's get my model up here. Get my X20A over here. Kind of organize Now I'm gonna take my brush and just put some water up here. All right. And slide this down into position as best I can, and slowly peel it up. All right. Now I'm just going to use my brush, and I'm going to make sure that I'm just trying to get all the wrinkles out that I can first. And I'm going to hold it down here while I smooth this out. In fact, I may take a paper towel. And I'm going to hold this down so I don't move it. And I'm not pushing hard, but I'm just going to smooth this out. Wet my fingers so it doesn't stick to me. Now, when you use the X20A, I don't recommend using that on all decals because it really tears some decals up. But with these, it does act pretty good. It does work pretty good, and it doesn't destroy them. And, okay. I'm going to pull my hairdryer over here. Okay. Get all my crap out of the way. And what this is going to do is soften it up. Okay, now I'm going to come back with my brush. Ooh. Try to get some of these out. I'm just trying to get these major wrinkles out. I'll come back with my paper towel, smooth them out. Trying to get any air bubbles out that I can. Now I can come back and pop them, but I'll try to get them out. Oh, and it slid just a little bit. So you can see these are easy to still move around once you get them on. Okay, now I'm going to take my X20A and I'm just going to dip my brush and I'm just going to put this on here. And some of you guys that have ever used this on your decals are probably going, oh my gosh, he's putting a bunch on there. Yeah, it's fine. Okay. All right, now I've got a good coat on there. Now it's gonna start wrinkling up. And I don't know if you can see that, but it is gonna start wrinkling, and which tells me it's working magic. It's working decal magic. So I'll let this dry and then we'll come back and look at it And, you know, I may repeat the process. If I've got wrinkles, I'll come back with or if I got air bubbles, I'll come back with an X-Acto blade, pop them, and then use my X20A on them, and they'll suck right down. So that's how I'm doing the bottom pieces. All right, fellas, I have jumped way ahead, and I've got all the decals on, as you can see. Here's the bottom tile decals. Now, the only issue that I have with these is that all the black tiles are this light gray color now, or light medium gray color. And that's okay for the bottom because that's the way it's supposed to be. I'm going to do some weathering with some oil paints on the bottom and maybe some airbrushing, but it's not so good for up here. So what I had to do with this is I took black oil paint and I created a black oil wash, and I basically just stained it with oil paint to darken it up. Same thing right along here, if you can see this. I did go ahead and I cut out white decal paper, the little covers that go over, the Tyvek covers that go over these thruster ports. So basically just created the image in my Cricut and then cut them out on my decal paper and slapped them on, and that seemed to work really well. Now I am mostly through my weathering process, and I've got everything flat coated with Tamiya flat clear, and I want to recreate the griminess and dirtiness on the side here, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that. And I'll show you that I've already done it on the tail fin, and it's pretty simple to do, at least the way I'm doing it. So let's get this out of the way. So what I'm doing is I've got some sepia and black oil paint, and I'm just going to take a brush with some mineral spirits and spread it out over here. Just get it somewhat wet with mineral spirits. And then I'll take some sepia oil paint, and I'm just going to dirty up this area. Might be a little too much. It's okay. Way too much, actually. Okay. Now I will let this dry, and we will come back and start removing it tile by tile, and hopefully get the look that we're going for. Ooh, the blacks is really stark. Just mix a little bit of black in there. Okay, so I'll let this dry, and then we'll come back and I'll show you what I do with it. Okay, it's had a good time to dry, and it looks kind of like a mess. So we're gonna try to clean this up and make it look a little more like the picture that we saw. So I've just got some mineral spirits here, and I've got a real fine flat brush, and I'm gonna dip my brush in the mineral spirits and wipe most of it off. And then I'm just gonna come along here, and I'm just gonna start cleaning some of this off, trying to get close to what the picture shows, but it doesn't have to be perfect. And ultimately, whatever looks the best. And then if I want to fade out more, I can come in here with just a Q-tip, and I can start wiping away big chunks and smoothing it out. And say that I want to come up here. Start wiping away. And I'm just going to go tile by tile. Now, I had to do a lot of patchwork with the tiles. So this is going to help hide some of that patchwork. So it's as simple as that. So I'm going to work on this off camera because it's probably going to take me a while, and do the best that I can to get close to what the picture shows. And then I don't know what we got left, so we'll see. All right, now what I want to do is recreate the look of the replaced tiles on the bottom of the shuttle, much like you see here in the picture. So what I've done off camera is I went ahead and I darkened up the tiles on the bottom with black oil paint, just like I did on the side, with just smearing it all over, rubbing it in, and then wiping it off. Then I sprayed a layer of dull coat, Tester's dull coat, over top of that to protect it. And then I took a light gray Tamiya paint and then misted over the entire bottom. And now what I'm doing is I'm taking some Vallejo thinner and a pointed Q-tip, and I'm just taking away certain squares, trying to get at least, if not the look of it, the idea of what we saw in the picture there. Now it's kind of hard to get exact squares with these Q-tips, but I think from a distance it will look pretty good. So much like I did on the side tiles with oil paint and mineral spirits, I'm doing the same thing down here with acrylic paint and Vallejo thinner and a Q-tip. And I'm not like pressing hard. And I put a real light coat on here of Tamiya paint. So I'm just going to go down the entire length of the bottom of the shuttle here and keep doing this until I get a look that I'm happy with. So that should be the last thing that I need to do. Now I've already unmasked the windows. You can see there. I will get the tail fin on once I get this done, and then we can take a look at the whole thing and we'll go through it, and that should be it for this video. All right, fellas, let's go over the good, the bad, and the ugly. So, overall, I'm happy with it. The paint work that I initially did with the cream color, I think turned out really great. I think that that really worked out well the way I did that. The decals, there were things I liked about the Warbird decals, and then there were things that I didn't like. The main thing that I didn't like about their decals was the light gray color for all the black tiles. Even on the bottom, I thought it was going to be fine. And then in order to try to create these little areas, I had to darken it up anyway. So with darkening up the tiles up here, I used oil paint. And when I did that, I actually got oil paint on the white tiles that I had up here and that I couldn't get off. So what I ended up doing was cutting out little slices of extra tile and patching all that in to cover up all the staining that had occurred on the white tiles. And some of the fit, it just didn't, the tile decals didn't always fit perfectly up here. I assume it might have been my error because a lot of the other decals fit really well. But just trying to get them to conform over the surfaces, I had to use a lot of hair dryer and a lot of X20A, and you know, it was pretty difficult. And there are some creases that I couldn't quite get out. And like I said, from 3 feet away, I think this is going to look really good. But when you get up close, you can see some of the little issues that I've had with the decals. And then up here, I tried to alternate my patchwork because the tiles didn't really match up from the initial decals that went on here. So that was kind of a pain. When you look close, you can see all the little patches that don't really match up, but from a distance and at a glance, it's not noticeable. And since I did weather it, it does also hide some of those. What else? I'm happy with how the tiles, the thermal blankets turned out. And I took a pencil because these have like little numbers on them that show up in some pictures. So I just took a pencil and just the same thing I did on the last one. Seems kind of cheap, but I just mark little areas on here where the numbers would be. So when you look at it from a distance, it looks like there's like numbers or something there. And it's not black. It was, you know, the graphite pencil. It doesn't like pop out at you, but it's there. Now, compare the tiles from the old way that I did it and the new way, and I just really like how neat that looks. Much neater than the old one that I did. So, one other thing, I don't know if I pointed this out in the video, but the window decals, what I ended up doing was just cutting those out in little bitty pieces and basically shrinking the decal up by and painstakingly applying those around the windows in little bitty bits. So I think it really does make a difference, and it really sets it off. So that's basically it. Oh, one other thing that I did back here, there are these little fabric dealios right around the engine nozzles, and I basically just cut out a circular piece of plastic card and then took my athletic tape and placed it on the plastic card, cut around it so I could get little circles that I would then glue onto the back to replicate what's on the real thing. And I think those turned out really good too. But there it is, guys. I will flash up some pictures. I appreciate you watching. I hope this has helped you out. We will start on the boosters and fuel tank in the next episode. So I will see you then.